Hello and welcome to the RotoWire Esports Show. My name is Ethan Sexton. Joining me as always, DFS Chan. Chan, how's it going today?
Good. How are you doing?
No complaints here, man, despite not doing this so well on this morning's slate. If we jump in, kind of looking in hindsight, it was the two LPL winners again, man. Common thread. Damwon Gaming scored really well with their wonky lineup that they ran out there today, but it wasn't enough to outscore top esports and LNG, especially on this 4-game slate this morning.
Yeah, I think it actually helped for DFS purposes that they were kind of wonky roster-wise. Obviously, Ghost, apparently the news is that he's burned out after MSI, that he was benched, just to get some rest. Now with Malrang, I think he started at jungle. I wasn't sure how he would do, but obviously that news didn't come out after the slate locked. So, it's just unfortunate, but it actually helped who rostered Damwon players without Ghost, because in my opinion, it was kind of, I think they were just focused on winning team fights, individual skills, and all that. I think they were just outmatching everyone in the lanes. I think Showmaker was playing in the bottom lane, Ezreal. So I think he was just trying to prove a point, and I think they were constantly trying to engage in team fights, and I think that was their win condition without the regular lineup today. So I think it helped for DFS purposes.
Yeah, they definitely played at an uptick in pace. More kills than we've seen in the first couple games for them. So it certainly didn't hurt them at all. And I will say, like, Showmaker is a guy who I think before 2 seasons ago, the year before they won Worlds, coming into that season, he did like A to Z challenge, played every champion in the mid lane in the game. And I think he had some absurd, 95% win rate or something. So he's a guy that can basically play any champions. So I wouldn't worry too much about him. I don't know. I mean, if Damwon continue with this kind of lineup, maybe they'll struggle against some of the other top teams, but they looked pretty good today.
Yeah, so moving forward, I think it's interesting to see who else would get rest, because I think the rumor was during the MSI was that Showmaker was not in good health. So there was a glimpse of that chance happening back then, but now that it just, if anyone, I thought it would have been Showmaker, but apparently it was Ghost today. So maybe next game somebody else will get benched. I don't know, but it's definitely a worry that we'll need to kind of look into. I think it will only happen when they play against some inferior teams, like bottom teams. But who knows? So that's always a risk with the LCK lineups.
Yeah, definitely. Before we jump into tomorrow's slate, let's give a little credit to LNG. Looking really great to start this season. They scored great in a 2-1 win against FPX today. They've beaten FPX and JDG now. Are you looking at them as one of the top teams of the split, or are they just hot in the early season here?
That's a difficult question. Yeah, I mean, they beat JDG and FPX. I mean, those are the top 3 teams in my opinion in the LPL. So I don't know. I think I have to give respect where it's due. I think LNG is now probably one of the top 6 teams, at least in my opinion. We'll have to consider that. I mean, like I said, Icon is just playing out of his mind. He outscored, for DFS purposes, their AD carry too. So whoever captained Icon, I'm sure they cashed for DFS purposes. But yeah, I mean, they're playing lights out. Tarzan seems more comfortable with the team now that he has the spring split under his belt. Obviously, he is Korean, so he had some language issues in the spring split. But now that he has a split under his belt already, I think he looks more comfortable. Yeah, and then Leiden and Wandy, I mean, they seem to be getting better throughout the split. They were kind of struggling in the laning phase, but yeah, I mean, today they showed that they can match up against good duo and LWX and Crisp. So I like their chances throughout the split. Who knows? But this is what kind of happened. I posted this in the Discord channel, but LNG had a hot start again, just in the spring split. And then they kind of went down the hill. They kind of plateaued off it's like a mediocre team, just like a gatekeeper team, basically. So who knows what's going to happen? But if last split was the pattern, then they're going to regress, to the middle of the tier. But so far, they look really good.
Yeah, for sure. Icon always one of my favorite players when he was on OMG. And we know Tarzan is great, right, from his time on Griffin. So if those two can continue to perform at a really high level, I like LNG's chances throughout the split. Enough about today, though. Let's jump into tomorrow, unless there was anything you wanted to bring up from today besides what we've already talked about.
No, I think that's good.
All right, let's jump into tomorrow. So tomorrow we've got four-gamer, of course. We've got Sandbox and Hanwha Life kicking off the slate. Hanwha are minus 260 favorites in that matchup. The other LCK matchup is Gen G and Red Force, where Gen G come in as minus 500 favorites. And then the two biggest favorites on the slate are in the LPL with Suning at minus 650 and then RNG at a whopping minus 2,000 against OMG tomorrow. So let's jump right in. To me, let's talk about the LCK series first, if you don't mind. To me, these both kind of feel like, and we say this a lot, but these both feel like the chalk teams are going to win probably, but I'm not so sure they're going to score well for DFS because especially Gen G and Red Force are two pretty slow teams. Do you agree with that? And do you think, do you like Hanwha Life at all? They can play at a faster pace from time to time, but to me, both the LCK series kind of feel like they're going to be duds, at least for DFS purposes.
Yeah, that Gen G versus Nongshim matchup features the slowest pace, like you said, Ethan. So that's probably the matchup I will fade, most likely. But it also provides a good GPP consideration in Nongshim because they've been in very good form. Gen G has struggled, in certain spots in their past 8 games they played in. So I think that would be a good spot to take for GPP purposes. But at the same time, we kind of mentioned this yesterday and the day before that there are better GPP considerations, for underdogs, in my opinion, in the LPL. But yeah, I mean, I like the Hanwha Life choice you mentioned. They do play at a fast pace, but they are 0-4 in the split. They have played against some good teams, but I think they're just thirsty for a win this split so far, and they're going up against your Sandbox. So we'll see how that goes. But, Hanwha, I mean, I think when they need a win, and plus I think Chovy is due for a, blow up game. He's due for a very good game here, I think. So, and I love the matchup between against Fate. He's been historically playing well. Has historically played well, very well against Fate. The data says so. I like Hanwha tomorrow. I like their pace. So if I were to pick an LCK team, it would be Hanwha.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think, you mentioned they're in need for a win. Well, if you're in need for a win, Sandbox is the team to go up against, right? So it's a good spot for Hanwha Life. I think they're pretty reasonably priced on DraftKings. They're the third highest priced across every single role. So you get a little bit of salary savings off the LPL favorites. And I think, it wouldn't be a huge shock to see Hanwha Life outscoring one or potentially both LPL teams. So I think Hanwha Life are in a good spot. Exactly like you said, it's Gen G and Red Force is just kind of scary, especially paying up for Gen G, I think, in what looks like it's going to be a pretty slow matchup. Not something I really want to do. If you're stuck and really need an underdog, then I agree Red Force maybe has a chance to upset. Although, despite the fact they've been playing pretty well, Gen G are a tough hurdle to come up against. It's just that Gen G don't score well for DFS purposes. Yeah, that about sums it up for the LCK, I think. Let's jump over to the LPL. We'll talk RNG versus OMG. It's RNG's first series of the slate. They got the first week off after coming back from winning MSI. This doesn't feel like it needs much discussion except maybe who do you want to target on RNG, because this feels like a pretty one-sided 2-0 to me.
Yeah, I agree. Except the little hesitation I have is what I talked about before for the MSI hangover, but it's not like they are coming back into the split right away. Maybe just like some LCK team, like a Damwon Gaming and some other leagues champions that went to the MSI from the last split. So yeah, I mean RNG has been quarantined, and they haven't played an LPL game so far. This is their first game post MSI, so they've had some time to relax and scrimmage and practice together. So I think, I don't think a burnout will be an issue for them. So I probably fully support that they're gonna win 2-0.
Yeah.
But the players to target, yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one because RNG plays as a team very well. Obviously, Xiaohu is probably one of the elite top laners to focus on the slate because he gets involved in so many team fights as a top laner. And then Gala, last split's MVP, I like him as well as for the AD carry. Just also based on the matchups, Cream for OMG has struggled a lot. I think Abel and Cold and Aki have played very well, and they were the reason why they beat Invictus Gaming in their last series. But Cream still, I mean, he struggled a little bit. So maybe Crying, would be a deserving pick to focus on. But I think Xiaohu, Wei, and Gala are probably my top 3 players to focus tomorrow.
Yeah, I think you can't really go totally wrong no matter who you pick from RNG. To me, there's really no hesitation in using them. You mentioned the possibility of the MSI hangover. I just don't think OMG are the team that can even take advantage of that. Crazier things have happened, but can OMG really beat IG and RNG in the same week? I don't think so. I'd be pretty confident using anyone from RNG.
Yeah, and one other thing I'll mention is that RotoWire has a page for data for player opponent averages, and sometimes that helps me make decisions on a team like this, who to play. Like, for example, it shows you how many points, DK points, that OMG has given up this split so far based on different positions. So I'm looking at it right now, and let's see. OMG has given up the most points against 80 carries on the other team. So, yeah, maybe Gala would be the pick. So,
yep. Yeah, I think there's lots of ways to go with RNG tomorrow for sure. So let's talk about the last matchup then, Suning versus Ultra Prime. I think this is the most interesting series on the slate. Suning are the second highest price favorites on DraftKings, which goes hand in hand with them being the second highest odds makers favorite. But they're 0-2 and have looked pretty bad. And Ultra Prime, while not being a great team, haven't looked awful. So do you smell an upset here? Because I think Ultra Prime are in a pretty good spot to pick off Suning here. But do you see it that way, or do you feel pretty confident in Suning riding the ship?
I smell an upset. I think Ultra Prime can definitely pull this off. For example, like I'm looking at some data and jungling percentage. So that's the percentage that each jungler on their team basically controls the map. And Ultra Prime has a 51.7% jungling percentage compared to Suning's 47.5%. I know that SOFM has struggled a little bit this split so far. And Hacker, coming from OMG, I think he's a decent jungler. So in this meta, I like Ultra Prime's chances. I know that we have kind of dismissed Irma's competency last time we talked about him, but as a team, they look pretty decent in certain spots. And Suning has just looked horrible in certain spots. So I definitely like Ultra Prime's chances here. If I were to make a prediction, I'd stick to my gun, and I'm gonna say Ultra Prime upsets them 2-1.
Yeah, I can get behind that for sure. But I'm wondering, for DFS purposes, like, do you think a lot of people are going to be looking at Ultra Prime in this matchup because of what we've just talked about with Suning struggling to start the split? And you want to get maybe like a Hanwha Life or a RNG in there, and you need an underdog to pair with them, and Ultra Prime look like the best bet. So do you think Suning end up being lower owned than they should be? I mean, in theory, they're a really good team on paper, or at least a team that you would expect to beat Ultra Prime if all you're thinking about is if all you're looking at is the lineups, you would probably take Suning, not thinking about their form or anything like that. So do you think Suning end up being a little bit low owned and therefore a pretty good tournament target for people, if they're doing multi-entry?
Yeah, I actually think today's this slate's ownership is going to be spreaded out, more spreaded out than any other slate that we've played so far, just because there's not like there aren't more than one top elite teams on the slate. Like RNG is probably the only one, and then the rest of them, I mean, people like to play Genji, people like to play Hanwha, and people like to play these LCK teams, even Nongshim. Like the ownership of Nongshim on the last slate they were on, I mean, that was pretty high. So I think it's going to be spreaded out more than ever. I think a lot of people tend to focus on the LPL teams because they're generally more bloody, but I think that this slate is probably the one that people will spread out their ownership, and there will be a lot of leverages. I think Suning, like you said, I mean, I don't know if a lot of people will pick Ultra Prime just to jam in, the favorites, but we'll see. I think Suning's ownership and Ultra Prime's ownership will be fairly low, respectively, as well. Okay. Compared to other LPL team ownership from before.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I mean, like you said, RNG stand out as the huge favorite, but other than that, there's not like a team that we love focusing on for DFS purposes on this slate. So I can see the ownership being a bit more spread out tomorrow as well. I think RNG by far the highest owned team on the slate, but I think the other teams relatively similar for the most part. So I think that's a good call. We'll jump back in here. Chan, anything else you want to bring up before we go for tomorrow's slate?
I think Chovy's going to go off tomorrow. I love Chovy. I think he's the best mid laner in my opinion. I think he's just going to go off. So if you were to, stack HLE, then Chovy would be the pick. But as a reminder, the LCK starters are not confirmed. So, there are some positions like in jungle for Sandbox and for Hanwha that can be changed. Thankfully, that's the first game, first LCK game. So we will get a confirmed lineup like in that 1 hour, 3 a.m. Eastern time. But if you don't want to stay up, make sure to keep that in mind that there is a substitution risk and, starter risk.
Yeah, as always, unfortunately, there's no confirmed lineups in the LCK until right before the series start, which was fun this morning when they announced the Damwon switcheroo. So, yeah, it's always a little bit risky, but just keep that in mind, guys, if you are playing those LCK matchups. If you've enjoyed the video, please drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel. You'll get notified when we go live and when our videos are scheduled to go live, so you can join in and chat if you're interested in watching along with us live. If you're interested in checking out RotoWire, go to rotowire.com/try. There's a link down below, free 10-day trial, no credit card required. And then once you signed up, you can go to rotowire.com/chat. And that'll give you instructions on how to join our subscriber Discord, where Chan and I are in there talking with other people about the various slates. We don't do videos for the LCS and the LEC starting back up tomorrow, but we will be in there chatting. If people want to talk about them, we'll definitely talk about them. So check that out. The links are down below, or rotowire.com/try for a free 10-day trial. Chan, thank you for joining me as always, and we'll catch you tomorrow, man.
Good luck, everybody.